Tonight, we're here to discuss whether it's reasonable to believe in God, and by God we mean capital G God. Theists don't worship some vague creator entity, do they? No, they worship a very specific God, a God that's omnipotent, omnibenevolent, and he's revealed himself through scripture. And if you're lucky enough, he may have revealed himself to you, or will reveal himself to you. But you've got to be careful, because this is also a sign of schizophrenia. I know, God works in mysterious ways. Tonight, we'll be examining these claims and attributes to see if they stand up to scrutiny. Is it reasonable in this day and age to believe in God? Here's a mind-breaking fact to begin with. In the Milky Way, our gorgeous galaxy, there are 400 billion stars. We can conceive of 10,000 people at a concert. We can perhaps conceive of 100,000 people at a decent festival. A million? Not really. A billion? Definitely not. 400 billion stars in just our galaxy. And each of those stars is a sun with potential planets and life. What's more, in the observable universe alone, because we can only see so much of the universe, there's 200 billion galaxies. That is absurd. Now, I want to keep this humbling fact in mind as we move forward. Because here's a similar humbling fact. If we represent the Earth and its history in a 24-hour period, we humans arrived at 11:58 p.m. That's right, we've been here for just 2 minutes, and all of recorded human history sums up to the last 3 seconds. Furthermore, until now, 99.9% of all species that have ever existed on Earth have went extinct. And they didn't go extinct nicely, did they? No, evolution is far from pleasant. Consider lactose tolerance, which is very high among Caucasians. Why is it that I, as a Caucasian, can consume milk? It's because my ancestors, who could digest lactose into their adulthood, were better nourished and therefore they were healthier. Notice that evolution didn't select for the most moral people to survive. No, it picked those that could produce lactase into adulthood. So I guess thank God for creating those who can't produce lactase to enjoy a soul-building speedrun. Furthermore, many well-developed species still went extinct because they didn't evolve for acts of God, such as the meteorite. Dinosaurs went the way of the dodo despite being apex predators. These mass extinctions consisted of 50, 60, 70, 80, up to 90% of all life on Earth wiped out. It's happened many times before, way before we turned up. The history of Earth is a history of indiscriminate, abject suffering. And what about the other billions upon billions of planets that I just mentioned? We cannot conceive of the suffering that's happened on Earth, let alone in the vast cosmos. But when you contemplate this vast, indifferent universe, when you contemplate these mind-breaking facts, rest assured, we're told, for apparently this is all designed with us in mind, because Genesis insists that it is. The Grand Cathedral was built with us mice to eat from its corners. He also built the best of all possible worlds. Important thing to note, for if God is all good, then he would want to create the best of all possible worlds, and if he is all great, then he would have done so. So in all this vastness, in all this suffering, in all this redundancy, this is the best that God could do. Now, I bring up these facts to emphasize that theists today have something profound over their predecessors, and it's this: they have a far greater faith than their ancestors, because they're aware of what Augustine was not. Their faith eclipses the saints. If we go back to the saints, if we go back to the infancy of our species, the stories of the holy works were viable. It made sense to think that we are created because the complexity of us appears to be created. Just look at your hand, look at how the blood vessels regulate your temperature, look at how the joints move. Absent knowledge of evolution by natural selection, that is a compelling, intuitive argument. Likewise, it made sense to depict the Earth as the center of the universe, because from our standpoint, we are the center. When you lay in the ground and you look up at the night sky, the stars warp around you. It made sense to say that plants and animals were made in their current forms because that's precisely as they appear to be. It made sense to say that we are a distinct creation, above the rest. The story of the Tower of Babel gave us an understanding of the phenomenon of different languages. It made sense to attribute diseases, famines, storms, earthquakes and the such to God's wrath. But as we made advancements, discovering God's world, what did we expect to find? We expected the Bible to be vindicated. We expected to find that life can't develop through natural means. We expected the age of the Earth and the universe to match God's words. We expected geological and fossil records to reflect the Garden of Eden. We expected genetic diversity and human ancestry to reflect Adam and Eve. We expected evidence of a global flood. But this didn't happen. Evolution by natural selection threw creationism aside. Astronomy revealed that the Earth is not the centre of the universe, and worse, there isn't a centre of the universe. Geology has exposed that the Earth is significantly older than what's suggested in the Holy Works, and yet astronomy has exposed that the Earth is significantly younger than the cosmos. Each of these examples demonstrate a pattern, theistic explanations being replaced by naturalistic explanations. As we uncover more about our universe, the realms once governed by religious facts increasingly fall under the domain of scientific, naturalist understanding. And this compels us to answer an uncomfortable question. If a horse had lost 1,000 races, would you still bet on it to win the next? This metaphor aptly illustrates the track record of theism when compared to atheism in explaining our world. This is precisely what we would expect to see if there is no God. For now, let's put a pin on this and move into the moral sphere, because this is a supposed last bastion of theism, before we even mentioned morality. Why, so asked the prominent Protestant pioneer Martin Luther, do women mature much quicker than men? Why is it that women, they finish their puberty before men? What's going on? Because it's an easy one. This is an easy one to answer. It's for the same reason that weeds grow faster than roses. He's saying that the reason men take longer to develop is because of the same reason it takes roses longer to develop. You just need more time for it. And the reason I mention this is because all three great monotheisms, they depict women as below men. In Genesis 2, God describes women as helpers. In 1 Corinthians 14, Apostle Paul instructs women to be silent and submissive in church. Ephesians 5 insists that women submit to their husbands. 1 Timothy 2 ensures us that a woman should not teach or assume authority over a man. St. Augustine, St. Aquinas, and all of the rest came with these receipts of revelation. Today, however, theists will disperse of these verses, relying more on the vacuously vague, right is written on our heart. That's how they justify finally giving half of humanity basic dignity. But what's going on here? How do theists explain this progress, this moral progress? On the one hand, we're effectively told by modern Christians that their saints, no less, read the Bible wrong. But think of what this entails. Should these saints even be called saints when they have so egregiously misrepresented God's words? And what of God? Are we really to believe that despite wanting to communicate with us, he could and would so egregiously fail in doing so? Are we going to buy this? Really? That an all-powerful God failed so abysmally to communicate with his saints that they expressed evil in his name? I don't buy it. But on the other hand, modern theists address this moral fluidity by saying that our ancestors lived in a different time. But think of what this entails. Theists insist that there are universal, objective moral laws. But what good are these laws if they are subject to time and socio-economic circumstances? Are we really to believe that an all-loving God could and would say yesterday that women are second-class citizens, but today that they're equal? Nonsense. No omnibenevolent entity could pivot like this. And here's the thing. We could do the same breakdown with slavery and homosexual condemnation. Just last week, you saw it in the news, Pope Francis received an update patch from God, granting priest players the new class ability to buff same-sex couples. Yeah, what we're witnessing right now, right before us, we're seeing it with our own eyes, is supposed objective moral values of theism being relative, changing to the circumstances as it has for the particularly last 300 years. But what do religions do about this? How do they deal with this history? It's genius. They spend great resources, often tax-free, to decorate the likes of Paul Copan to obfuscate these truths. Once the pious are dragged kicking and screaming into modernity, they have the audacity to claim that our moral progress is theirs. But it's worse. They say that if it wasn't for Judeo-Christian values, then we wouldn't be speaking here about these things at all. But the briefest look at history and what the Church Fathers actually believed and how they backed up their unfashionable views by today's standard with solid scripture demonstrates just how unreasonable modern religion is. Apologetics is, by my lights, a lie we tell ourselves, a soothing fiction that we adopt, sacrificing our integrity to reassure us of our fears. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation that comes. Thanks.